All right. This week on Gymwright Live, we interview Sam Pogue and talk about how you can use continued education to build a better business and community. Check it out. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I'm your host, Marcus Gursey, and with me today we have the wonderful Mr. Sam Pogue. How you doing, Sam?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to finally have you on. Sam is not only a dear friend, but Sam kind of makes moves in the industry. Sam is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at ONNIT, a little brand you may have heard of. Doing all sorts of wonderful things for the fitness industry and really just functional fitness movement, I think, as a whole. You guys are contributing a ton through all the educational courses you guys have for trainers, products, and just, in my opinion, just a really cool brand. So pleasure to finally have you on. And not to mention, Sam also runs a podcast with our very own Jessica Webster called The Fitness Break Room. And they're doing all sorts of cool stuff, traveling all over the world, interviewing all sorts of interesting people. So make sure you check that out. But pleasure to have you on, Sam.
Such an honor. I can't believe I get to finally be on the other end of this with you.
Yeah, awesome, man. I got to be on your show last time. So pleasure to finally have you on. So what we're going to be talking about today, guys, is we're going to be talking about continued education and how to leverage that a little bit differently than how some of us maybe think we could or should. And Sam, in working at ONNIT, you guys, and all the courses you guys have, has some pretty unique insight, because it's actually not just what he does at ONNIT and what ONNIT does, but also who they work with and the exposure that Sam and his team, John and whatnot, all have in this industry as a whole that I think is pretty unique. So I'm excited to dig in with this today, Sam.
Yeah, me too, man. Whatever I can do to, help the industry move forward. And that's the whole reason why Jess and I started Fitness Break Room anyway. So the more people doing it together, the better we can go.
Awesome. Very cool. Sam, today we're going to be talking about the importance of continued education. We're going to dig into, cutting out the dogma in fitness. And like I said, building community and really also your own culture, not trying to replicate someone else. Question I'd like to start with is, why should a gym owner care about this?
I think the biggest thing is that at the end of the day, most of your clients coming in the door aren't going to care about what certs you have or what your educational background is. However, education and different experiences can change the lens of perspective of your coaches and obviously give them more tools to be able to provide value to your clients. So I wouldn't look at continuing education as an isolated, oh, I'm going to get this ONNIT or Animal Flow or FRC cert and that's going to drive all the business in the world. But you should look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm helping my coach be more refined in the way he delivers the message and the culture through our gym. And the more tools you can give that coach, the better experience they can create for your members, the better retention you're going to have, and better, opportunities they have to close new business to be able to drive that. In addition, I came from the 24-hour fitness type world, and, in the big type box gym, the trainers set the tone or the culture for what the gym is. 24-hour fitness or Gold's has their own culture, right? But each individual siloed gym is its own culture. So the one I came through in Portland, Oregon was a big powerlifting, hardstyle, kettlebell themed gym. And so in turn, what the members see every day from the trainers, because inevitably the trainer is the alpha, right? That's who the members are trying to replicate or become. And so they see us powerlifting. That means they're probably going to want to powerlift. But if you have a gym full of NPC bodybuilders or CrossFitters or calisthenics athletes, that's going to shift the focus in terms of what the members are going to see. So when you can give your trainers and coaches different lenses of perspective or additional into what they already really love doing and going down that rabbit hole, it just provides them a new outlook and a new opportunity to be able to express value going forward with your members. And the root is your business.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. It's, I think we get really pigeonholed, especially in the CrossFit box space. I mean, I think over the last year or so, we've been seeing people really go outside of just that set of certifications and knowledge base, if you will, which is still fantastic in so many ways. But I think when you have that as a foundation, but then you go into these other arenas, what in my experience I've seen it do for the coach from a confidence level standpoint, and just how dynamic they are in communicating with people and how they can help. And like you said, they're setting the tone. So when they're not just, blinders on, this is the only way we do it, this is all we do, it's only thrusters and back squats and so on. And you can say, look, I'm here to help you become your best physical self. And I'm going to take any and all information and I'm going to run it through a filter and help translate that to you based on what you need. And I think that people seeing that in their staff, constantly exploring new things and implementing new things is really, really important, because it's going to make sure that they also don't feel, because that's something I've learned now over the last few years that I see happen more often than I'd like to admit, is that I see gym owners becoming stagnant in their skill level and their knowledge level, because they get really caught up in all the day-to-day of running the business itself. And what happens is the members catch up. And when the members feel like they've caught up to their coach, because their coach maybe only had a few years on them and they're now all the way in, and the gap starts to close, the perceived value of being a part of that community and the relationship is that alpha, as you said, that starts to diminish. And that's a really dangerous spot to be in as a business owner. So how do you see, how do you feel, or because you visit a ton of gyms, how are you seeing gyms who have trainers where they're implementing these types of continuing education? How are you seeing this affect the culture?
I think, you can create little microcultures inside of it. So I just got back from New York, over the weekend, and we taught our foundations, certification at Solace, New York, which is obviously a big time CrossFit box. Mm-hmm. And they have 30 different offerings inside of that box. Mm-hmm. They have bar classes, yoga classes. They have traditional CrossFit. They have a starting strength like Jim Wendler, Mark Rippetoe style, 5-3-1, 3 sets of 5, 5x5. Strength setting, they have gymnastics classes. I think, are getting ready to roll out steel mace classes, and they do body weight conditioning classes. And, they have 700 members, right? And so it allows them the opportunity that not everybody's there to try to go to the games. Not everybody is there to try to get their 1 rep back squat to be as high as possible. Not everybody's there to try to get shredded. What CrossFit did so freaking well is develop the idea that, actually, more often than not, the peripheral things of fitness, why, I want bigger biceps, I want that, is binary to, I just want to belong, right? And that's why CrossFit boxes around the world are successful, because they give these people a place to belong, and it becomes less about that my Fran time was this or my Diane time was this, but oh my gosh, I get to go hang out with my friends, and we just, get to have something that we share and experience together. Hey, we all got our asses handed to us in that WOD. That was cool. That was that was something that we got to do together, and that's something that we'll be able to go through. And so you see these boxes implementing these really cool different offerings, and it's no longer just CrossFit, right? Because the general consumer doesn't know the difference between CrossFit and ONNIT and powerlifting. They see a barbell and pull-ups and they think CrossFit, right? Yep. And CrossFit did the best job, I think, of integrating multiple different streams of activities inside of one fitness. Because under one banner, we don't know what CrossFit really means in terms of who says it can't have maces? Who says it can't have kettlebells? Who says it can't have medicine balls? Right? And so you saw all these walls being knocked down from I have to do bicep curls, I have to do back and bi, chest and tri, leg day, upper body, lower body, whatever that kind of split is. And now it's oh, well, what is that little shiny light over there? That's really cool. I can put that into my facility. Maybe I do mobility classes or body weight classes, and I'm finding that my members are really enjoying it. And so I think that you're starting to see that the really successful gyms across the country aren't just a CrossFit box. And to be honest, maybe you'll be able to tell me more. How many boxes realistically send athletes to the games, either on the regional or the national level, right? There's
very few nowadays. It's not like it was, far fewer boxes and much easier to get in. The bar's been raised, way up, and there's way more all around. But that's I think you hit the nail on the head. That is when people think it's just a CrossFit box. It's if you really run a great CrossFit gym, isn't the whole concept of that of saying if it works and it's measurable and it's repeatable, welcome in. And, you know, if we're using our bodies the way they were designed and it makes us a better athlete in all these different 10 principal skills, then welcome in. And I think that a lot of the kind of more old school, like I said, the blinders on, like, well, because of the implements that were kind of a part of the scene when this all first came on with just, hey, we have 14-pound and 20-pound med balls. We have, you know, barbells, pull-ups, kettlebells, dumbbells. And that was kind of it. Right. And there's some people I see that still have those blinders on, when really the most successful ones that I see are the ones that are constantly evolving on that and saying, well, what other tools are there? What's new? What's interesting? And they go and they it's almost like they have their R&D team, right? It's like the owner and the staff or the R&D team, where they go and they're trying different certs and, oh, I pulled a little something from here, a little something from there. They bring it back in. And every gym owner and every head coach is going to have their version now, that they're kind of melding all these different things that they're taking from different certifications and different styles and modalities and making their own brand almost of fitness, if you will. And even though you say, like, yeah, we're a CrossFit gym, you don't have to, it doesn't mean you have to add a bunch of different types of classes and offer, like Solace, 30 different offerings. You can still just have your program, but you can now modify the core program. The core program can just become more dynamic. And frankly, I think that's really what not just the industry needs or requires now to keep it moving forward, but your members are going to start demanding it.
Yeah. Well, no longer can you be, you know, when you and I got into this industry, you could just be the only box or the only gym within a 3-mile radius, and you were probably going to get traffic. Now, you know, and that's the 24-hour fitness, the gold model, right? Is like, oh, centrated in high traffic areas, people are going to show up. But now those facilities are struggling because the market has just proven that people are willing to spend more than $30 a month for a premium service, and even to maybe drive out of their own distance, which is less likely, but they are willing to spend more money for not just the convenience factor, but for the community factor. Right. And so that's when you start seeing, now you see 9, 10 boxes popping up, or now you're up against a bar, a Soul Cycle, a Flywheel, a Yoga Lattes, a beer yoga, whatever.
Yoga?
You know what I mean? Yeah. We have that in Austin. Some lady does beer yoga. You drink beer and do
I'm
yoga.
moving to Austin. That's my speed right there.
I haven't done it yet because I feel like I wouldn't put on a good show. In the yoga part, maybe in the beer drinking part.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, man, that's I think important to understand. It's like, you know, and again, you know, people get really hung up on, you know, the equipment or the fancy facility and all that. And at the end of the day, the majority of your people are there not just because it's a good workout. They're not just trying. If you commoditize yourself and you're just a good workout at a cheap price, you're trying to compete against these other things, you're going to lose. It's a race to the bottom. Rather than saying, well, we are our own unique culture and that it's about relationships. I say this every other episode basically is, this is a relationship-based business, and you either embrace that or you're going to lose against the person who does. Because the person who legitimately cares and is building meaningful relationships with their community, you become priceless. That's why people are willing to pay more or drive out of the way. And then when you can take that and you can blend it with now a very progressive approach to the program, and we're going to be constantly evolving this thing. We know that it's never done growing. You're going to keep people's attention for a really long time.
Right. Well, and just like you're not trying to hire an exact replica of every single coach to be the exact same person. Like for me, I'm the loud, obnoxious, pageantry, rah kind of person, right? But you don't need 9 of those, right? You need 1 of those, and then you need someone that's probably got actually some empathy, right? And a little bit softer spoken.
You have no empathy?
I struggle really hard with it. It's something I really have to work on. Right. That's why when my business partner and then my partner on it are both very empathetic humans, right? Yeah. So I need Jessica to be successful, and to actually, you know, hold me to keep me from being 100% of a douchebag. She keeps me at least partially.
Dials it back just enough.
Just enough. But, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, we get really, focused on, well, my way, or we attach value to what we understand, and we fear what we don't understand. And if I'm talking to, let's say I'm at a conference, I'm at NSCA, right, which is the National Strength and Conditioning Association, mostly collegiate, professional strength coaches, right? Not necessarily industry side like box owners or personal trainers. And they attach a lot of value to being strong. And that's great. Like, I attach a lot of value to being strong. I come from the powerlifting, Olympic lifting background. However, is it the only tool? And so they might look at me on it with, you know, clubs and maces and kettlebells, And we're sitting over here preaching about higher technique focus and using offset lever loads or using tools instead of just measuring success off of how much weight you can lift or how fast you can move it. And then they want to question like, well, why would I use a club or a kettlebell when I can use the barbell, right? The power clean and the back squat have a ton of research that show efficacy and value for performance, right? There's millions of papers written out there. You know, you could interview someone like Andy Galpin and he can tell you all the benefits, you know, muscle recruitment, fiber type that does that. However, I don't have, when I'm trying, if someone's coming at me maybe a little aggressive, like power cleans are king. Like why would I use this tool instead of the barbell? That's what I know. And I don't have to prove that I'm right. And I don't have to prove that they're wrong. I just have to get them to admit that they can't prove me wrong. Does that make sense? So, you know, if I'm talking to a strength coach and I'm like, Marcus, at any point in time, do your athletes need to rotate?
Yeah.
Probably. At any point in time, do they need to use maybe less than maximal load?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do they need to downregulate instead of upregulate?
Never.
Never. Right? So now,
yeah.
Just disarm the conversation. Like now it's not about like, hey, I'm honoring the fact that power cleans and back squats have a ton of value and I think that they're awesome. However, you just told me that these three variables are also valuable. So now we're not arguing anymore because we're agreeing on the same thing, right? So when it comes to education, don't look at it as, well, I have my CF level 1 and I have FRC and I have ONNIT and then everything else out in the world sucks. And if I don't do it or if I'm not the one coaching it, then you shouldn't be doing it either. This is the only way to do fitness, right? And it's like, that's so not the way, right? In terms of, it's not a good approach from a business standpoint because it pigeonholes you into being a specialist, which there's, you know, if you're in the business of making money in the gym and not in the business of living in your gym, you probably need multiple people so you can, you know, eat food and pay rent in two places, right? Your house and your gym. And so you don't want to just be stuck to this size audience. You want this size audience, right? And so I look at it as when we're so scared of what we don't understand, it usually makes us put our guards up, right? So if you're the CrossFit box in town and maybe you pump out, maybe you got some regional athletes, that doesn't matter, but maybe you're doing really well. But you notice, you know, it's, you're trying to get a youth program up and going, you know, rather than, you know, trying to fight the Orange Theory down the street, right, who already does something. And the people that do Orange Theory are not taking away from the people doing CrossFit, and the people from CrossFit aren't taking away from Orange Theory, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe if you had a class at the same exact time as they do, it gives you guys the opportunity, like, hey, people will inevitably find what fits with them and what strives with them. Like you're, as a coach or a box, like you're not going to resonate with every single person, right?
Speak for yourself.
What's that?
Speak
Yeah.
for yourself. Yeah, of course.
It's just, you know, how can we, if we don't understand something, maybe, you know, we shouldn't just throw it away for what it's not worth. Maybe we should try to understand it better, right? And so we look at, you know, education, especially in fitness right now, is so unique. You know, it used to just be like NASM, NSCA, ACE, right? And then RKC kind of comes along and now all these new education systems come along. But when we're fearful of what we don't understand, it's like, well, I'm going to hold my footing in this position. I'm a hard style kettlebell guy. I only do kettlebells this way. I only do things this way. And it's like, okay, I'm not even saying that that's disvaluable. It's just like, that may not be the only tool for every single person, right? So if your only tool is a hammer, everything is going to look like a nail, right? We want to have a nice big toolbox so I can pull a level and a square and a hammer. And I might need multiple different types of hammers, right? And so for you with your coaches, you know, maybe you don't send all of your coaches to the same course. Maybe you set up to where it's like, all right, Marcus, if you have 5 coaches, in our commission structure, our payment structure, if you average teaching, 30 classes a month and 10 personal training sessions a year for 8 to 12 months, whatever timeline, I'm going to buy you a continuing education certification and I'm going to send you to wherever. Ideally, it's probably in your local cadre. But maybe they're doing well enough. You're like, I'm going to send you to New York to do a seminar, like as a cool perk, right? And I think we find too, not to get too crazy, but, trainers can get very stagnant and owners get very stagnant, right? You're training 10 hours a day. You're teaching 4 classes a day. You're going home at night and doing the books. Like you're ignoring your wife. You're not playing with your kids because you're trying to survive, right? And that's the whole idea of Gymwright, is to help you not just like tread water, but to actually, succeed and set systems up. So that way you're like, oh my gosh, I can like run a successful fitness business and still live a normal, fulfilling life, right? And like, getting people out of being married to the gym. And so, that maybe sending your trainer to that course where they might get some light bulbs pop open. It might really reinvigorate that trainer, because as we all know, the burnout in this industry is fucking huge, right?
Out of control. Yeah. Well, it's because people aren't willing to admit that it isn't about going harder. It's about working smarter. It's the same thing you're preaching to your athletes has to apply to your business, right? And the reality is that when you, even though because here's the thing, what I think happens is that when you achieve any sort of ease in the business, right? Like, hey, I think we've kind of figured out our groove. Like we've got our like programming kind of like, I don't want to say templated, but you've got it kind of on rails. Our coaches are kind of dialed in. This is starting to feel a little bit easier. Why would I go and re-challenge myself or go spend all this additional, the little money that I have extra to send someone away to, an ONNIT course in Austin? But when you think about what it really does for the business, because you're getting that coach is going to be so psyched and so reinvigorated coming back in with new knowledge, new information. Plus, guess what? You are associated with that because you sent them there. And having them come back, and what we used to do is we would say, okay, I'll send you to a cert, but you have to come back and teach it to all of us. Yes. So pay attention, right? So now all of a sudden it's a game. They're coming back and they're saying, look what I learned and let me show you guys this. And now it modifies our core system, right? So back to the stagnant thing, that's not appealing when you think of like, oh, that means I have to like work and spend money and like come out of my comfort zone. But it's the most important thing you can do, because you're enhancing your product, because the product itself, the training, the program is going to become more dynamic, but your coach is going to be more dynamic. They're going to be more energized. They're going to have more buy-in into your gym. Those are all the things you actually want to continue to grow and sustain, at least.
Yeah. And you could even, for the really heavy metric people, like you could totally like measure it like, oh, when Marcus came back from this course, man, his, attendance, retention, everything else went up. If you're going to measure it that way, you couldn't, let's send a survey out, but like you definitely could, like, oh my gosh. And you should be able to do the eye test. Like, dude came back so fired up. He's crushing every class. Numbers are up. He's up 5 members per class, every class, because he's just lit up, right? And so, and then from a developmental standpoint, if you're making him come back and do an in-service, which if you guys aren't doing in-services with your staffs, you should be, where empower your coaches like, hey, learn something, come back, teach it to the group, because presenting, it's one thing to coach clients where you're the expert. It's another thing to coach coaches, your peers, and it's another thing to try to speak to people that are essentially a higher level than you too, and to have that confidence, right? And so to be able to take information, digest it through your lens, and then execute that back out to your coaches and your clients is an entirely different skill set. And you're now developing that coach to be a leader, a better speaker, creating evolution for what they could potentially do. So that way, hey, maybe because of this strategy, this person's really risen to the top and really taken on the role of, oh my gosh, I'm now going to go to more education. I'm going to read more, and I want to keep presenting this information to the other team. And you're developing a natural born leader to step up that can inevitably maybe even take on some more responsibility from you and allow you to take another level up and look at it even 10,000, 15,000 square foot view. And you create internal competition because coaches are trying to, get to each other. Like, I want to be that person. I want to do that.
Each other.
That's right.
Yep.
And when you start installing new stimulus and new education and new fun things, especially into your classes, and let me say this, you're not going to replace what you already do. So if you have your 3-day on, 1-day off program from CrossFit, and you have your strength day, your strength plus conditioning, and then your strength conditioning and calisthenics piece, don't even check that out. Just maybe install principles, right? Education should be principle based. Don't go to a course, and I do about a course every other month, if not a month. Don't go to a course thinking that you're going to be a master instructor from that course from day one. Like, I try to take courses 2 or 3 times before I'm like, oh my gosh, I really have an understanding of this. But what happens is it's going to allow you to come through and like, I'm just going to put this element into my programming, right? I'm just going to install this really cool piece of movement that I learned at this course in my warm up or my cool down, or this is a new coaching cue that I got. You're not going to go to a course in a system and all of a sudden, if you're a CrossFit box and you come to an ONNIT Academy course and all of a sudden you're like, scratch that, get everything else out, we're switching the entire thing up, because that's what your members already pay you for. They're not going to notice if you dose, hey, that was a really cool cue to how to teach the hinge or the deadlift or the kettlebell swing. Now I can install that into what I already do well, my members get more value from it, and all of a sudden I'm getting more and more buy-in from the athletes. So if you read Brett Bartholomew's book, Conscious Coaching, really amazing book just about the communication patterns that coaches and athletes have, developing buy-in, right? But if you get members, right, who are buying into that coach or your system or your gym because they love that culture, how many members end up becoming coaches at boxes? Right? Probably a fair amount, because they're like, oh my gosh, like the fitness industry is made up of like three types of people, right? I went to college for exercise science or got a master's, and I want to be in the performance or the personal training industry. I went through a massive transformation, right? I either lost weight, gained weight, did a feat of strength that I was looking to do, right? And all of a sudden, like, ooh, that really fulfilled my heart. Maybe what if I did that full time, right? And then finally it's the person that just straight up was like, okay, I work out all the time already. I'm tired of working my 90 hours a week in an accounting office. I love CrossFit. I love whatever. I'm going to go become a coach, right? And so now you have all these different lenses of perspective of coaches coming in, but for you as a gym, right, you're building your minor league system. Right. So if your coaches are coming out executing really amazing fucking sessions, right, and classes, and then in turn, you're also exciting some of your members to be like, I wonder what it would be like to work there. Right. A lot of coaches can't hire a full-time person all the time. So it's like, hey, Marcus, in exchange for your membership, how about you teach 2 classes a week? And it like is a little toe in the water. And the next thing you know, they're teaching like 3 classes on a Saturday. And then like, hey, someone wants to do personal training with them. So now they got a couple personal training clients, and they end up getting to this like, okay, I'm at this like take it or break it. I'm going to have a couple months of not making the same money in my accounting gig, but F it. I'm so happy right now. I love nothing more than coming to work every day. The community of the employees is great. The morale is up, right? So now you have, when that, you know, if you have a coach leave because their family, they move, or they decide to open their own spot, which inevitably is going to happen, right? And tangent, like side note, as leaders, if you're a box owner, don't be fearful that a coach is going to leave, because it's going to happen. Right.
Yep.
And if you're so hung up on that person, like, take off and move. And obviously there's bad situations and good situations, but right, measure your success on, oh my gosh, look how many gyms have started because of Marcus Gersey, right? Like, this dude not only had a really great gym, but he developed 20 coaches, and now they all run 20 successful boxes somewhere else, right? Now it's
right.
Like, you can hang your hat on that. Like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I don't have to run those gyms, but I know inside that I helped build those. And now you have a stable of other people because they've been invigorated by the education, right? Then they go to a course for fun. What's that?
You inspired them. You inspired them to see what is possible and to pursue something like this. That's an opportunity. I mean, it's kind of a point of pride, I think. And we talked about this when we interviewed, or Jason Fernandez and I talked about this when we interviewed him a couple months back on continuing education, about just understand that is going to happen, and you can either embrace it and be a part of it and help contribute because you're helping someone move up the ladder. And that's actually being a really good leader, rather than the person who's like, well, I don't want to take you too far along because I don't want you to break off and do your own thing, and now you're a competitor. Wrong attitude. Yep. Look at it from the standpoint of, I hope to create the next generation. I hope to create the new standard and inspire people to become career coaches through what I've created here in our culture, to replicate and then create their own version of it and continue to do the same thing. I think that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Leaders lead, right? How do you find someone who's leading? They have people following them, right? And, and the people who really truly buy in, it's not because, this shouldn't be a dictatorship style leadership, right? It should be something where it's very embraced. It's where very, we're in this together, right? I mean, this might be the wrong number, but last time I checked, 1% of the world has gym memberships. Right. So there is plenty of people to go around.
Plenty of fish in the sea. Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Sam Clemente, like, I'm sorry, you're not stealing any clients from me, but I sure as heck hope I have a full network of amazing coaches and facilities where it's like, oh, you're moving to San Clemente? You have to go here. Oh, you're moving to San Diego? You need to train with this person. Right. And yes, those are few and far between, but I tell you what, the bigger net that you have, the more people that are coming to you to be able to share that, right? And especially when you can get buy-in from different people, right? And, when you look at like partnerships, in terms of like what I do, it's not all partnerships need to be financial, right? So, If you guys know who Mark Fisher is, Mark Fisher runs Mark Fisher Fitness in New York City, a $4 million a year facility. He's on the Inc. 3000 list, super successful, speaks for all over different organizations. And him and I went to dinner back in 2016. And he sits down and we're talking, and all of a sudden he stops and is like, "What's your angle?" And I was like, "Oh shit. Okay." I didn't see the conversation going here. Yeah. But I said, "Look, man, if Mark Fisher Fitness brings in ONNIT supplements into your gym, that's awesome. And I think if we could provide that value, I truly support that and would want to give you that, to help you and your members. However, don't think that our relationship, value is predicated on whether you bring ONNIT supplements into your gym or not, right? $250 a month, to be honest, like awesome, but we're also in Whole Foods and Sprouts, like, and that's not to demean the money that you're paying. It just means that, like, I don't want to tell you that, Marcus, if you're not going to take Alpha Brain, we can't be friends. Like, if that's your attitude coming in, that's such a shitty attitude, and it's so exclusive that no one's going to really want to be a part of it. And there's a lot of fitness systems out there who are like that, right? And so I told him, I was like, look, ONNIT chooses to be everywhere from a media standpoint, right? We try to put a ton of content out there. You're very influential. People come to you for your opinion. You speak all over. You run really successful facilities. All I care about is when someone comes up to you and says, "God, what do you think about ONNIT?" And your response is, "God, they are great. Sam's great. The education system's great. I love it. You should definitely check it out," right? Even if you're not trying to convert them into a sale, that's a win. So when you look at the same thing, look at your education like different partnerships, right? It doesn't need to be that it's just, you can measure like, okay, I went to that ONNIT cert and that turned into, $75 ROI per consumer that comes through my door and it increased my closing rate. Like, you could measure it from that day forward and coming back, but that course can give you so much, we talked about earlier, so much more than just that particular, financial piece, right? And so when you're going through, like, if you can have different elements, right, to provide value, right, now you have more opportunities to touch more people, inevitably bring in more people.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question. Yeah. You travel around a lot and you see a lot of different gyms. What are some interesting things that you've seen that have stood out to you, like in the last year or so, that you're seeing gyms doing that really stood out and thought, oh, that was really cool?
I'll tell you what, the first and foremost, of all the gyms I go to, and when I do travel, I try to stop by different facilities and different boxes, different performance facilities. And the number one thing I see across successful facilities is an attitude of servitude and an attitude of community, right? Mm-hmm. They're opening their arms, they're welcoming me, not because of who I am or what I do in the industry, because I'm not a household name, right? They do it because that's what they do every single time. I remember Kenny, Jessica, and I went to do a podcast with Kenny at Solace, and we're walking into the gym, and the dude picks up like 4 pieces of trash on the ground as we walk down to the downstairs. And I was like, this dude's the general manager of a multi-million-dollar facility. Sure, there's a dude running around at the time with a vacuum cleaner cleaning it, but he picks it up. And I was like, hey, if the GM's willing to just bend over and pick up some trash, it shows you who his character is. Well, if you see his character, you know that that's being transcended down to his coaches, right? And the entire experience, because I didn't take a class there. Jess and I just did a podcast, but every single trainer was so nice. Their front desk was so welcoming, right? And that is the theme across all the successful facilities, is the services and the face that you put onto your consumers. Because once again, they don't know the difference between CrossFit Sally and CrossFit Robert, and they just know CrossFit. Right? What they do remember, right? People forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but people will not forget the way you made them feel. 100%. Right? And it's that Maya Angelou quote, right? And so at the end of the day, no one gives a shit about the rest of the cool things, the equipment that you have, the social media following your coaches have, the certifications that you have, the cool words that you say, the fact that you went to the games. They care that when they show up, you remembered my name. You remembered that my dog died last week, and that hey, I hope you're doing well. If you need to talk after class, or if you want to go grab a coffee afterwards, I'd love to just spend some time with you. That kind of shit right there makes the end all be all difference in the world across all the facilities, right? And so, in terms of some of my favorite facilities, you see like Solace is one of them. Angelo Cisco's gym is one of them. Anatomy at 1220 in Miami is another one of them, right? And everybody's just so beaming with, oh my gosh, they're so welcoming and so heartfelt, right? It's like, oh shit, that's so powerful, right? Yep. And notice I didn't say anything about like that they had CrossFit gymnastics, CrossFit barbell, CrossFit rowing, ONNIT, Animal Flow, FRC. Those are all great things. But I truly think, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, but like I truly think that the service that you provide your members is tenfold more responsible, more impressive than the education that you're putting out. Right?
100%. Some of the most successful boxes or just gyms that I see around and have seen over the years, because I've traveled around, dropped into over 500 boxes at this point myself too. And the thing that always stands out is how they make you feel, right? It's the environment, and it isn't about the technicality of the programming. It isn't about how many barbells or rowers they had. That you forget that 10 minutes after you leave. What you don't forget is how you feel. And what I think where we can kind of pull all this together is that those that have a culture as a team, right? Not just the community as a whole, but if the leadership team, so the staff of this, the leadership of this tribe, which is the staff, have a culture about constantly challenging themselves, constantly progressing, constantly learning, and bringing in new information to constantly improve, right? It's this constant pursuit of excellence, and knowing that if I ever stop learning, I'm now regressing, right? Yep. That creates a confident staff, and a confident staff that when you have people who care and they're confident in what they know and that they're constantly learning and challenging themselves, that then carries into the entire community because it's all top down. And those are the magical little places that you walk into where it doesn't even matter how many certs the person has or any of this stuff. None of that matters when you feel like the person knows what they're talking about. They're excited to help you get where you're trying to go, and they make you feel warm and welcome. And that's why investing in continued education for your staff, for yourself, is so critical, because you're creating a top down of progress, of not just being stagnant and thinking that, well, we know everything that there is to know about this, and this is just how we do things now. It's that we know that there's more than I'll ever be able to consume out there. And I'm just going to try and get as much as I can. And my job for you guys is to get all this and aggregate it into this gym and into a program that you guys enjoy and that keeps you safe and you guys can keep progressing. And it's that culture, that feeling that you get that when you walk into a gym.
Mm-hmm. You ever heard the expression, it's about human resources and personal development, and it's about investing in employees. And, you got the two managers talking, and it's like, Marcus, what happens if we invest in all these employees and they leave? And then the other guy comes back with, well, what happens if we don't invest in them and they stay? Right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, shit, right? And you're like, that's so true, right? Because there's a lot of people just kind of riding the wave and not willing to push the fold forward, right? Remember, as a business owner or the leader of the gym or the leader of the pack, you're responsible for these people's development in addition to the business. And so for you, if you're trying to evolve your own business, you need to be as an owner evolving your leadership and your team underneath of you, so that way they can take on more and more. Because you can't have organizational revenue growth if you don't have internal organizational growth, right? If your business grows 20%, your coaches need to grow 20%, and not necessarily in numbers, but in terms of responsibility that they're each taking on, right? And then you need to take on the role of the visionary of, this is where I see things going. So, when we looked at, Jess asked me about this, continuing education is great. And I get a number of people who take seminars from me or take seminars with me that it's, oh, this is going to reshape my business. It can. It absolutely will, but not from the financial monetary standpoint that you think it will on the front end, on the very front end. However, developing your coaches, developing people, if you guys are hiring new people and your members, or even we talked about earlier, your members want to become coaches, don't hire off of the certifications that they have or the amount of education that they have. Those are all great things, but hire off of culture, right? Hire off of character. Hire off of who they are as a person and how they communicate with your classes. Are you going to hire the member that says, Marcus, I want to be an owner, but they're sitting in the corner sulking and they just never talk to any members, right? Or you're going to hire the one that's high-fiving everybody, that was awesome. Even if they won or didn't win, you're like, man, that person lights up my group. People like them, right?
It's the spirit.
That's
100%. It's the spirit for one, when we're in this business, it has to be about people who want to connect with people. If you don't like people, you're in the wrong business, first of all. But it's also, and this was a tenet for us at Active, was that we only hire or want to have people on the team who value education. And I don't mean a list of certifications. I mean that hunger for what else is there? Like, I know I don't know. So what else can you give me? And we'd let people go over not having that attitude and being in that mindset of like, nope, I already know it all. And the reality is that that's not who we are as a culture. That's also why I think we in the box business environment will tend to hire from our community, is because you've cultivated this person. You've shown them the light. You lead by example. They want to be a part of it. They're yearning to now first contribute and help, and then they want to participate. Well, if you can then also provide a path forward and saying like, not only do we have a really fun, effective program, but everybody in this thing is, everyone's excited to be a part of this team. People want that. They crave that regardless of what industry you're in. If you're a good accountant and you work for a dull team or a dull leadership team where this isn't embraced and it's not exciting, like we're doing new things constantly and we're experimenting, someone sees something like that, they're like, I'll ditch my degree and my 9-to-5 safe job to go do this. Like, that looks amazing. And really that's the feeling we want to have. That's that magic thing. Going to a certification is I think it can save your business, but it's not for the reason you think. Like you said, it is because you're going to come back reinvigorated. You're recharged. You're excited because you've got some new tools and you know how you're going to implement these things. And I've got some new ideas. We did this killer warm up thing. I'm going to tweak this around. That's why it's monetarily beneficial, because you are more exciting and happier and you're ready to move things forward. That's addicting. People, that's attractive. People want to be a part of that, so they're going to chase it, right? Yeah. And that's how you're going to benefit from this. So, like you said, it's not about you're going to come to the cert and because you added another cert to your bio, people are like, oh, now I'm going to sign up. Like, thank God he got that extra kettlebell cert. I wasn't going to join until I saw that.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah, unless you're going to specialize in a very specific granular focus, which can be valuable for your business, but also understand that that's not scalable to the next level. Right, for that particular person. So
it's not what the business is, though. Like, yes, I think you if you're very passionate about kettlebells and you're like, I want to run the best damn kettlebell gym on the planet, go for it. But the point is it's the spirit of the gym being exciting and an exciting place to be a part of, because it feels like there's life, right? It's not just, we have a good program. It's this, and this, and I just do kettlebells and that's not what people care about. The point is that they want to be a part of something exciting and feel like they belong and they feel like you care. And that's what pulls all this stuff together. And ultimately that's really what we should be striving to achieve as a gym owner or as a gym manager to continue moving the ball forward. It's put your energy there. Investing in your team is going to have the highest return out of anything you can do. And I will go toe to toe with anybody on this. In that you invest in your team. If you've been in this business long enough, you know the product is the coaches. It's not the program. It's not the building. It's not the equipment. It's your team. They are the product. That's why people are showing up. It's because of how they are making people feel. So when you invest in them and they feel like, I have the best job in the world, I freaking love coming to work, you already won. Because everything else after that is semantics. Great. Tweak the program. You're going to run a Windler versus a this or that. It's like that to them, that's not really why they're there. A tiny fraction of your audience, of your community actually knows and cares. And the majority is going to be there because of how this place feels.
Absolutely. And so the more you can give your coaches new experiences, right? The better lenses of perspective they're going to have, the more empathy, the more understanding of what else is out there, right? The relatability, right? For me, if I'm evaluating a coach, like, you might be really good about coaching one-on-one, but then can you coach a small group? Can you coach a large group? Can you coach in an education setting, right? Those are your 4 evolutions of who you are as a coach, right? I used to be just a one-on-one trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. Then I started doing group classes. Then I started teaching a really large group class. And it wasn't until I was 8 years in the industry, moved to ONNIT, right, where I was even positioned to even teach a seminar. And not, once again, it wasn't because I had the most education, right? To be honest, if you guys don't know who I am, like I have a bachelor's in business, right? I fell into the fitness industry in 2008 because I couldn't get a job anywhere else, and I sold memberships at 24, right? And now I'm an educator for ONNIT, and I oversee strategic partnerships, and then I do sports performance coaching. But none of it is because I went out and got this cert, I went out and did this. It's because I adopted this community. I adopted the mindset. I changed my perspective of what I attached value to, right? So it wasn't that I was like, okay, Jake, we're going to do back squats 85%, 87%, and 92% for triples this week. And then we're going to go into our Bulgarian split squats because I have this cert. I have the functional blah, blah, blah cert, and I have this cert. And he'd be like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Or, that client or that person or those people, right, in whatever those settings we talked about, need to be able to relate to you. And if you can't relate to someone, right, you're going to have a really hard time connecting and building out going forward, right? Because we just discussed, no one gives a shit about the education. They care about our dynamic this way, right? And so when you start seeing, as a box owner, if you start seeing like, oh wow, your coaches and like the members are all hanging out, like did they just they all went to a group dinner? Like, of course I'm a little upset I wasn't invited, but at the same time, like that mingling right there, you're like, I've got it, right? That's the mix right there. That coach has his 10 best friends are my 10 members, right? And those 10 members who are so bought into you and that coach, right? They're there because, they get great service, they get great workouts, but they're there because they love the experience that they walk into, right? And that was stemmed from being able to empower your coach to have more and more and go give them more, right? Yep. Instead of like, well, I got my NASM and now I'm just a NASM, right? And that's all I know and this is the only way. It's like, oof, it's going to be a real lonely road, right? Community is a very important thing. So.
Awesome, man. Well, Sam, I feel like we can talk all day. And because anytime we hang out, we do. Anything else you want to say? I mean, if you could give one piece of advice to a gym owner, what would that be?
Oh man. Well, I would look at it and say, worry less about what the gym down the street is doing from you and what they're doing wrong, and worry more about what you can be doing better. Right. And so, if you're a CrossFit box and there's a sports performance facility next door or down the street or an Orange Theory, right? Don't look at them and say, well, gosh, they're doing Olympic lifting all wrong, or I can't believe they do it this way. Instead, go into it with a servant attitude and say, what could I learn? Right? How can I take off my face I don't even know where I'm going with that. How can I take off my value system, right? Step into someone else's shoes, understand with what they're doing, because they might be able to give me something that I never thought of. Because Marcus, if you and I took the same course, right, we have different lenses of perspective because our life has been different, right? Mm-hmm. You from the hotels and me from, whatever, right? And it's just like, you're going to see something entirely different because you've had all these different experiences in life that have taught you, ooh, that's what this is, right? And mine is the same, is the opposite. So I would encourage everybody to, and from an action standpoint of that, don't worry what the other person is doing, right? Rather try to build a local cadre in your community, right? And start building up. So go take a couple lessons from the sports performance coach down the street. Like maybe like, hey, I'd love to go learn some cool sprinting mechanic, workshop, or I want to learn how to row better. I want to learn how to do this. So don't worry what everybody else is doing, right? Try to step into their shoes and understand what they're doing better. And even if they're doing it wrong, right? Okay, I understand with what they're trying to do. Don't say anything. It's not going to accomplish anything if you're sitting and bashing a keyboard and trying to argue with someone or going up to them and telling them how much they suck in their face, right? But try to say, oh, that was a unique experience that I now can take on and now I learn from, so I can deliver a better experience to everybody else.
You can learn something from everyone. And one of the things I've seen go away in these last 4 or 5 years in this industry, which I think was actually how and why it was so successful to begin with, was when we all first started opening boxes and it was new, it was wide open, Wild West. Everyone was supporting each other. Everyone was learning from each other. We were all going to each other's classes. We were all saying, oh, what are you doing? Oh, can you show me how to do that? That's where a big part of the energy that created the initial momentum for our entire community, and especially in CrossFit, started. And then when it started becoming competitive, where people are like, well, now there's a gym down the street and I don't want them seeing what we're doing, people stopped doing that. And that whole kind of magic layer of we're all going to push forward together because we all want to see this thing get better together started to go away. And I think now that it's starting to come full circle, hopefully, people will, if you're watching this can then inspire you to kind of maybe get back out there, but go and take those classes, go see what people are doing. It doesn't matter. Even if someone's brand new, they will do something or say something a little bit different than you do. And you're like, that was really good. Awesome. I'm going to take that and go and spread your wings and get out there, and also be willing to help. And don't be gun shy if someone comes and checks you out. Encourage it. We're all only going to get better from it.
No one's ever going to regret delivering really good service, right? From any of the boxes, right? Like no one's ever going to leave you. God, Marcus, you are too nice. Why are you just always smiling? And your coaches are so nice to me. I don't want to come here anymore. I'm going to go to the other one because they have USAWs and RKCs.
Probably not going to happen.
Ever.
Cool, man. Well, Sam, thank you so much for being on. Where can people find more about you?
You can find Jessica and I at fitnessbreakroom.com. Check out, we try to bring on awesome stories and guests from people like Marcus Gersey and tell the story behind their success and how they got to where they are. And then you can find me on Instagram, SPOGUE86, and try to deliver a lot of really amazing content and showcase my cool travel and road warrior lifestyle.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for being on. And by the way, too, we'll put a promo code for 10% off all supplements, foods, equipment, education. Promo code is Fitness Break Room. And this is they can just go to the ONNIT site and make any purchase. In case you've not checked out ONNIT yet, get out from under your rock and go check it out. They're doing really, really special things in particular when it comes to the certifications, the education that you guys are putting out there. I'll say it. I mean, I like you as a friend, but I think that you guys are doing the best work at the moment out on the scene. Your programs and what you and John Wolf back at HQ are doing is just unparalleled. So keep up the great work. Thanks for everything that you're doing for our community. And for those of you watching, check them out. And we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you very much for the hospitality. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.